You're listening to Full Circle Weekly News. These articles are compiled by Eric the Unready. I'm your host, Moss Bliss. This is episode 378, covering week 31, July 29th to August 4th, 2024. Lynx 2.30, a minimalistic web browser, has been released, supporting both console and graphical modes. When working in console mode, it is possible to display colors and use the mouse if supported by the terminal. Graphics mode supports image output and font smoothing. In all modes, tables and frames are displayed. The browser supports the HTML 4.0 specification, but ignores CSS and JavaScript. There is also support for bookmarks, SSL/TLS, background downloads, and menu system management. When running, Lynx consumes about 5 megs of RAM in text mode and 20 megs in graphic mode. The new version improves the build using GCC 14, solves problems with displaying the window title in KWin-based environments, and disables asynchronous DNS operations on the Windows platform to work around some bugs in Cygwin. SVNet 3.10 has been released and continues to be used in distributions such as Devuan, Debian GNU Hurd, and Anti-X. The code is written in C and distributed under the GPL v2 license. The versions of the ins-serv and startpar utilities used in conjunction with SysVNet have not changed. The ins-serv utility is designed to organize the boot process, taking into account dependencies between init scripts, and startpar is used to ensure the parallel launch of several scripts during the system boot process. The new release adds processing of the SIG-RT-min+4 signal and triggering the shutdown-H P-now command to shut down when this signal is received. Processing the SIG-RT-min+4 signal was required because it is generated by systemd when the user executes the machine control stop command to shut down the system. In addition, the new version fixes an issue in the bootlogd process that causes it to go into a loop when opening a device for writing without performing a write operation. The UBports project presented their OTA 5 focal firmware. This is the 4th release of Ubuntu Touch based on the Ubuntu 20.04 package base. The project is also developing an experimental port of the Lomiri desktop. The Ubuntu Touch OTA 5 focal update will be released in the coming days for a variety of mobile phone models. Builds for the OnePlus One, Samsung Galaxy S7, Xiaomi Redmi Note 9/9, Pro/9, Pro Max/9s, and Poco M2 Pro devices will not be generated. The release is mainly focused on bug fixes. Specialized boot image SuperGrub 2 Disk 2.06S4 is presented, designed to boot any systems in situations where the user is faced with a damaged bootloader, the inability to boot the system, or overriding the main bootloader in systems with multiple OSs. A menu-based console interface is offered to manage and search for bootable systems. Partitions with LVM and RAID, encrypted partitions booting from EFI, IEEE 1275, and Core Boot are supported. Recovery modes are provided for various Linux distributions, FreeBSD, FreeDOS, Mac OS, GNU Hurd, ReactOS, and various versions of Windows 98 or later. The new version makes the transition to the GNU Grub 2.06 bootloader. They also added support for the LUX2 disk encryption format, the ButterFS file system, booting Linux from the boot partition, and working with disk partitions using labels. Support for loading the ReactOS operating system and Debian and Arch builds based on the GNU Hurd kernel has been implemented. The ability to boot Debian and Ubuntu in UEFI secure boot mode is provided. Daniel Robbins, the founder of the Gentoo distribution who left the project in 2009, announced the end of development of the Funtoo Linux distribution. Loss of interest and a desire to devote one's time to other projects are cited as reasons for closing the project. There was no worthy candidate in the community to transfer control to, so it was decided to simply shut down the project. Arndt Bergman posted a plan to strip the GCC-based kernel and build tools of code to support older ARM CPUs and their associated ABIs, instruction sets, and kernel capabilities. The plan is still at the RFC stage, that is, posted for community discussion. If the plan is approved, the removal of old ARM processors is proposed to begin in the Linux kernel 6.12, which is expected to be released in December. The first candidates for removal are ARMv4 without removing ARMv4t, IWMMXT, BE32, and OABI. The cessation of support for old ARM CPUs in the kernel intersects with the cessation of their support in GCC. Some of the CPUs submitted for removal are no longer supported in the latest branches of GCC, and some are planned to be removed in future releases, which will simplify the modernization and implementation of new features in the compiler. Removing support for an architecture in GCC will require removing support for it from the kernel if the minimum version of GCC supported by the kernel is increased. Microsoft has published the first stable update of Azure Linux 3.0, previously distributed under the CBL Mariner moniker. The distribution is being developed as a universal base platform for Linux environments used in cloud infrastructure, edge systems, and various Microsoft services. The project is aimed at unifying the Linux solutions used in Microsoft and simplifying the maintenance of Linux systems for various purposes up to date. The project's code is distributed under the MIT license. Package builds are generated for the AArch64 and x86-64 architectures. Amarok 3.1.0 was published. The project was abandoned after the release of KDE 5, but it was revived this year and ported to Qt 5 and the KDE Frameworks 5 libraries. The project code is written in C++ and is distributed on a GPL v2 license. Amarok provides a 3-panel mode for displaying information: collection, current song, and playlist. It allows you to navigate through your music collection, tags, and individual directories. It supports dynamic playlists and quick creation of your own playlists. It can automatically generate recommendations, statistics, and ratings of popular songs. It supports downloading lyrics, covers, and information about compositions from various services, and makes it possible to automate actions through scripts. Apple has announced the creation of an open library that implements homomorphic encryption methods in the Swift language. The library allows you to create applications that process data that is only available in encrypted form without intermediate decryption at any stage of the calculations. The output produces an encrypted result, which is similar to encrypting the result of performing the same calculations on the original unencrypted data. The project code is distributed under the Apache 2.0 license. The implementation is based on the Rikursky-Fan-Vercauteren scheme, which in turn is based on a ring fault learning problem protected from cryptoanalysis by quantum computers. Low-level encryption primitives are used from the Swift crypto library. Working with data with homomorphic encryption comes down to the fact that the user encrypts the data and, without disclosing the keys, transfers it to an external server for processing. The server performs the stated calculations and generates an encrypted result without being able to determine what data it is working with. The user decrypts the issued data using his keys and receives the result in clear text. Homomorphic encryption can be used in cloud services for confidential computing, implementation of electronic voting systems, organizing work with encrypted data in a DBMS, and confidential training of machine learning systems. The developers of the Manjaro Linux distribution announced the start of testing of a new experimental build, Manjaro Immutable. It is notable for delivering the base system in the form of a single monolithic image, mounted in read-only mode and updated entirely in atomic mode. Only booting in UEFI mode is supported on both x86-64 hardware and virtualization and emulation systems such as VirtualBox and QEMU. After testing is completed, they plan to give the build the status of an official version of Manjaro. The team proposes to install programs as packages in Flatpak format and use environments created by using Podman and DistroBox. You can disable blocking changes in the root partition and use the standard Pacman package manager, but packages installed in this way will be lost after the next system update and will have to be installed again. You've been listening to Full Circle Weekly News. For more details, see the next issue of the magazine at fullcirclemagazine.org or check the links in the show notes. You can contact me at bardmoss@pm.me. I'll see you next week.